Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2025 Delaware Department of Education's MLL Conference. Today, we will be focusing on unpacking the WIDA Proficiency Level Descriptors. The presenters for this presentation are Samantha Reynolds from Las America Aspera Academy, Cassandra Muzzey, and Kelly Sanchez, both from Howard High School of Technology. Next slide. Our key learning objectives for this presentation are to build capacity of all educators to center multilingual learners' statewide educational initiatives, examine and interpret WIDA ACCESS scores, apply proficiency level descriptors to support MLL students across content levels, and to utilize proficiency level descriptors to scaffold MLL instruction. To give you a little demographic background for both schools, Howard High School of Technology's total student population is 905 students. Out of those students, 103 students are identified as MLL students. A little over 11% of these students attending the school are considered MLLs.
Aspera Academy is a K-12 school, and so our total population to K-12 is 1,475 students, and then the total number of MLLs in our population are 500 of those students. The MLLs account for 33.9% of the school's population.
Next slide. Howard High School's MLL growth rate has increased over the past 4 years. For example, in 2020-2021 school year, we started off with 43 MLLs. Over the last 4 years, our population of MLL students has increased to 103 students. Next slide.
Aspera's MLL growth rate has grown over the last 3 years from having about school-wide 411 back in the 2022 to 2023 school year to where we're at now with 500 MLLs. As you can see, the year-to-year percentage change, we just see that our MLL growth rate is just continuously going up.
Next slide.
The WIDA ACCESS assessment is used for English language learners. It's an annual assessment that's used to measure the English language proficiency in grades K-12. It focuses on 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills, and it is aligned with WIDA's English language development standards. Students need a composite score of 4.7 to exit the program. That is the case in Delaware. It might be different in another state. WIDA ACCESS assessment is used in 42 of our states. It's important to know that when they are taking the, taking the assessment, that they include academic language of all the main subjects within the proficiency test. Next slide. Interpretive versus expressive communication. So it's important to understand that the difference between the two. If you look at the graphic, interpretive is viewing, you're listening, you're reading, and you're taking in, and expressive is where you are speaking and writing. So that's the easiest way to think about the two. So what they wanted to do was increase the accessibility options for students and using multimodal forms of communication within the two, interpretive and expressive. Next slide. So a bit more about what that means is that when interpretive communication is what the student is taking in, and this includes but not limited to listening and reading, because a student might be able to take more in, but cannot expressively communicate it back just yet. in the English language, whereas they might possibly be able to do so in their home language. So the output might be different than what they're taking in. So it's important to be able to differentiate between the two to help our students access English the best that they can. So take a moment and jot down some examples of what you've seen this communication looks like with your students in the classroom. So now we come to the proficiency language descriptors, the PLDs. What is a PLD? It's a detailed articulation of multilingual learners' growth in interpretive and expressive language across English language proficiency. And so here, and we talk about the 3 dimensions of language: discourse, sentence, and word phrase dimensions. So educators can use the PLDs to examine language expectations across proficiency levels and inform differentiated scaffolding. So here they have a great link where you can check out the PLDs for your grade in the link below. So if you click on the link, what's going to pop up is what you see down there below. So I'm going to give you a moment to go ahead and find one of the grades that you work with. Pop that open in another window and maybe write some things that you notice about it or some things that you wonder about this tool. Okay, welcome back. Now that you have looked at your proficiency language descriptors for your grade level, now I want to think about how we can use that with our content teachers. Next slide. So the idea is that we are going to use this information, whether you are an MLL support teacher, para, or a content teacher. You can use these to get an understanding of where the students fall within the WIDA access scores at the beginning of the year. And then you use the PLDs to help guide, support, and scaffold where they should be going with their development, with their next language development skills. Next slide. Using the proficiency level descriptors to inform content on students' current language skills. So what we're going to do that is we're going to look at the domains, and then we're going to dive in a little deeper to see where, if they have more skills in the expressive or interpretive area, if they're stronger in one content level than the other. Maybe their math skills are a little bit higher. As we all know, with MLL students, what their knowledge is in their home language will transfer over into the language that they're learning. And so that can look very different for each student. The proficiency levels navigate a discussion and what supports would be best and how to use them in the classroom. Next slide. On this slide, here we have an example of some scaffold support that you could use based on their identified overall proficiency level at the start of the year. So here, and within WIDA, there's levels 1, level 2, 3, and 4. So as we know, they need a 4.7 to exit. It does go all the way up to 6. But right here, we're focusing on level 1. So if somebody is a 1.1, they're very likely new to the country. And if possible, which is not always the case, but often it is, a peer native language support student would really help them. And they can discuss. And so let's say the person has a strong interest in science and their home language, and they're trying to make connections. They can have a discussion that could bring more meaningful information, which could turn into maybe interpretive, helping them become expressive, when we know that's going to be the biggest challenge for someone that's entering at a level 1. The other support that's often very helpful is to shorten the length of assignments. And if there is an English, let's say there's an essay for an ELA 9 class, and it needs to be your typical 5-paragraph essay, and each paragraph should be 7 to 10 sentences. Okay, you want them to learn to do the 5-paragraph essay, but maybe we can shorten each of those paragraphs down a little bit. I think it's important to keep in mind that as we're instructing, here's your thesis, here's your introduction, your body, they're having to translate all the directions that we are giving them, the information that we want them to take down, and then how they're using higher level thinking to understand and to process the information and put it into an essay. That takes a lot of work and a lot more time. So I think that that's something that would definitely help the students feel like doing something like a writing assignment that would probably seem very daunting, make it a little bit more accessible for them. Another thing I teach at the high school level, visual aids. I think that the elementary schools are fabulous at making sure that visual aids are being used. And I think that sometimes we fall off the wayside with those in high school, but I think that visual aids are so important, whether it's just modeling, like taking an example of a 5-paragraph essay and putting it on the board. You can give them a graphic organizer, but if they don't know how to take what's in that graphic organizer and then put it into essay format, little things that we might think they should know, it's very likely they don't know, and they may not know how to articulate it. So if you are giving exemplars and models, that's going to help them as well. But here's just an example of all the different scaffold supports that you can use to help students succeed no matter what content level you're teaching. Next slide.
As you can see here on this slide, these are the grades 9 through 12 WIDA proficiency level descriptors for expressive communication, such as speaking or writing. On the left-hand side is the criteria for discourse. And then you can see how we start at level 1 on the left side and go all the way to level 6. 1 being the lowest level, and of course 6 being the highest level. So you could use these level descriptors to determine where an MLL student stands academically, what they can accomplish and what they need to move more toward. What are the next steps to help them be academically successful? Next slide. Here's an example of a 9th grader's ELA writing assignment. Take a moment, about 10 minutes, to focus on this particular writing assignment, and you can use the previous 9 through 12 proficiency level descriptors to evaluate this particular paragraph that is completed by an MLL student. How would you score this particular assignment?
now we want to talk about using the proficiency level descriptors to guide content teachers and MLL specialists to what needs to be developed next for the individual students. So DOE has done some excellent work in creating a success plan to help guide our students in their next steps in language proficiency. So they created this document for MLL specialists and the students' content teachers to be able to create a success plan for the students moving forward so that they can help get support in their language development across all learning environments. So there is the student's name, the planned start date. So if you were beginning this at the beginning of the year, there is a place for the student ID so that they can look them up in eSchool or DSC or Infinite Campus. And then the list of teachers contributing to the MLSP. So similar to a IEP, as many people as you can have at the table to give a well-rounded picture of the student would be great. We know that each content teacher and the MLL specialist might see something differently in their classrooms. And then when we come down here to section 1, it's going to go over the background or historical information for the student. So that's going to include things like where they're from, were they born in the United States, did they recently immigrate here. It's also going to include their home language, if they're SIFE or SLIFE, so that's a student with interrupted formal education, or a student with limited or interrupted formal education. So if a student has come here, say they are in 6th grade, but they only attended school for 2nd and 3rd grade, and then they have a gap in their education for 4th and 5th grade. We're going to want to mark that in this section 1. We're also going to include things like social interactions, interest, the parent's education level, the parent's English proficiency. Do they have any siblings? What does their home life look like? All of these things are going to tell us more about the student so we know how to best support them moving forward. Now here in section 2, we are going to talk about the multilingual learners placement in the English language development. So this is where we're going to get more of a picture from the MLL specialist to go through where they're currently at in their proficiency. So this is where you're going to include your WIDA scores. You're going to definitely want to put the WIDA scores for each domain because we know that some students are going to be more successful in a certain domain over the other. So maybe someone is really good at listening in English right now, but they're still struggling with their speaking or their writing in English. So we know that they are being successful with their interpretive communication, but their expressive communication might still need some support. You're also going to put in here their classification. So you're going to put, are they a newcomer? So a newcomer is someone who has only been in the United States for a short amount of time, about 1 to 3 years. Or you're going to put that they're a beginner, and those are going to be your level 1s. Are they emerging with their language? Are they a long-term EL? So a long-term EL would be someone who has been in the United States school system for over 6 years, but they're still classified as an MLL student. All of those things are going to give us a better picture of their English proficiency and what we need to do moving forward. It's important here in section 2 to make sure that we're gathering multiple perspectives. So how is the student doing in the cafeteria? How is their social language? How are they doing in gym class? How are they doing in ELA, science? math. All of those things are going to give us a better understanding of where they need to go next. And lastly, for this section 3, team review and planning, this is where we're going to put in goals for the student. So we want these to be attainable goals for the student throughout the year. We want them to have specific and measurable targets that the whole team agrees on. So we need to make sure that our language goals are based on where the student is at now, their current language proficiency level, and then what we think that they can get to throughout the year. So going back to these PLDs, we are going to take where the student is. So if we are looking at their writing goals, if they are currently at a level 2, then we know that they are expanding their text by using not genre-specific organization, but they do know how to organize their writing into an introduction, a simple body paragraph, and a conclusion. We want to help them grow by focusing on giving them genre-specific organizational patterns, which is going to be what they can do at the end of level 3 with their writing. So that means focusing on statements of position. How do you make an argument? A call to action. If they're using narration, then we are going to want them to give more figurative language. We want them to set up the story in the beginning so we know exactly what we're talking about, and then to give the details of the story. But if we're making an argument, then we're going to want to focus on having a firm argument standpoint that's not giving any pronouns. That is a third person formal argument sentence to begin the essay. We can also focus on substitution and omission. If they're at the level 2 of writing, then we're going to go up to level 3, and we want them to be able to take a noun and substitute it with something else, but still talking about the same thing. So using multiple words to describe the same subject. And then using the same student as an example, if there are level 2 with writing at the sentence level, we can focus on grammar such as simple and compound sentences. That's only using a familiar way of combining the clauses with some coordinating conjunctions. So they're going to be able to use and to combine like topics and like subjects, but we're going to want to push them to start using compound sentences that are using our different types of conjunctions. So focusing on yet and but, so that it is kind of an opposite idea, but within the same sentence. So we're helping them move grammatically from one level of the proficiency level descriptors to the next. And we're using our success plan. We're using our success plans to outline these specific goals so that every content teacher knows where the student is with their language proficiency and where do they need to go to next. So the student is constantly being taught language. Our content teachers are also language teachers. It should not just fall on the responsibility of the MLL specialist. Our students need to be able to get language goals and objectives in every content and every aspect of their academic careers. So we're going to give you a few moments to look through this guidance document to make a copy of it for your own use. And we really encourage you to start thinking of those students who maybe they are at a level 1 or a level 2 and you really want to push them to get higher with their proficiency. Or maybe you have students who are now long-term ELs who are sitting at high 3s and low 4 scores on their WIDA proficiency, and you want to move them to that 4.7 so that they can test out. So we want to focus on these goals so that throughout the year, they are growing and they are seeing growth within their proficiency. So take a few moments to follow the link to just look through the plan guidance document, look at the multilingual learner success plan document so that you can have a better idea of how this can help your students.
Well, thank you so much for spending this afternoon and part of your conference with us for this session. We hope you found it informative and gave you some tools that you could take away and use in your classroom, whether you're an ML teacher or a content teacher or a para or an administrator, actually. So at any rate, thank you so much for being part of this, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.